Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how overloaded functions work in C++. So let's start a new project. I'm going to make it a Win32 console application. I'm going to call it Overloaded Functions Demo. And we'll make it an empty project and disable our security development lifecycle checks because we don't need all that stuff. And we're going to add a new item, a C++ file. I'm going to call it driver.cpp. And put in the normal things which we do with the program. So just a comment header. So there's our normal start to a program. And let's say we had a few functions. So here we have a goodnight function. Of course, I need to put a copy of the function prototype at the top of the program before main in order to be able to call it. And my function call will just be say goodnight. And if I were to run that, we would get a program that would just say goodnight. But let's say I wanted to also be able to run this function and pass in a name. Well, you know, if I just put in a name, that would change the way this would work. And let's say I wanted to be able to both call it without a parameter and then also provide one parameter. Well, what I could do is I could make a duplicate of this function. And if I just put a duplicate in, I should get, you know, we can't do this twice. But what we can do is we can make another function which has the same name and takes a parameter. And you can see here, what this one does is it takes a name and it'll output that name, and now we have two functions which have the same identifier for the function, but have different parameter lists. And if I wanted to call it, I could just call it up here, and I could put in a name. And let's see, we'll use a get line in case someone uses more than one, a two-word name, for example. And so now we're going to get a name from the user, and then we're going to pass it to say goodnight. And the question is, which one of these two functions will it call? Well, the first time this first function call will call this one here with the parameter with no parameters. The second function, because we're passing in a string parameter, C++ will look at these two functions and find the one which is most appropriate for the parameters for the arguments passed in. Since the argument passed in is a string, it's going to call the second one, and if we run it, we'll see that. And point of fact, we see good night, and then we put in a name, and we can see that the second one was in fact the one that was called. We can check this in debug mode. I'm going to put a stop point here, and then I'll run in debug mode. And so we're here at say goodnight. So let's see. This first function call with no parameters, which one does it go into? I'm going to hit F11 to step into this function. And as we predicted, it went to the parameter list one because we have no parameters here. If I step through this, we see our output. Now we're here where we're declaring name. We output and do a get line. And here I'll put in a name. I'm now at this function call here, and the question is, which one does it go to? Well, if I hit F11, we can see, well, there's a string involved, so we go to the string library. I'm going to hit Shift F11 to step out of the string library, then I'll step in again, and it goes to our one parameter function. So you can see that C++ does a lot when it decides which function to call. It's not only looking at the identifier for the function, but it's also looking at the parameter list to decide which one to run. Let's add another function. I'm going to stop this. And we'll add another function, maybe with two names. And then maybe we'll have and let me take the param, oh, never forget to copy your prototypes back up. And then let's see. Let's make another one where we'll bring in a number. And we'll put in a loop. So we can see now we have more functions. One takes two strings, one that takes a number. And we'll copy this kind of, and we'll get a second name in. And the second one, we're going to pass in two strings. And what we'd expect, of course, is that the one with two strings will be called. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll also have another example where we'll get a number. And we'll pass in that number. Of course, we can't get line and number. We're going to have to cn into that number. And as a habit, it's a good idea to cn.ignore to get rid of any leftover carriage returns. And let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to run this. And let me set this up. And so we're here at say goodnight. I'm going to, we actually done this a couple times, so I'm going to just go down to this step here. And I'll hit F5 to run from down to the next breakpoint. It's asking for a name. And we can see we're here now, and it ran, you know, the first function, and then the second function we put in a name. And now let's see where it goes with the second function. If I hit F11, I have to get out because of the string function, so I'm going to hit Shift F11. Step it again. Again, it goes into the string function. And then let's see which of the functions I wrote it goes to. It goes to say goodnight. That one runs. We go back out. We hit F10. We're now at where we're getting a number. So we'll execute that. And if I put in a number, say 10, now we're passing in a number, which is an integer. And so, you know, the question might be, is it going to, there's one parameter. Will it go to the one with the string? Well, in point of fact, no. If I hit F11 in this one, it's going to go to the one with a number. And the way it figures out which one to go is if the parameter is a string, it will go to the one with the string. If it's a number, it will go to the one with a number. And in this case, if I hit F, I'm going to just put a stop point down here and jump all the way to it because I don't want to hit it this 10 times. If I hit F10, I guess I need to go one more. And we can see that it says goodnight 10 times. So yes, that worked, and it figured out the right one to go based on the type. Stopping debugging. What might be interesting though is what would happen if we said say goodnight and we put a floating point number in here for 15.5 or a double, for example. So just to illustrate that, I don't want to go through all this again, so I'm going to comment this out. And we're just going to run this with a floating point number. And the question is, which function will it go to? You know, this takes an integer. This takes a string. So let me run this. And so we're sitting here at this function and we're wondering, which function will a double go to? Will it go to this one with a string or this one with a number? So I'm going to step in and hit F11. Oh, hit F11. And it went to the one with an int. Hit F5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so it ran it 15 times. So it figured out that, hey, you know, I can convert this into an integer, and that's where it ended up going. So it will do some implicit conversions if necessary. Even if you don't provide it exactly what's there, C++ will pick the function which most closely aligns with the parameters you provided. To illustrate that again, let's try this. Let's put in two numbers. In fact, we'll put in two integers maybe this time. We'll put in a 15 and a 12. But we have two parameters. Well, in this case, it can't find when it takes two integers. So even though we have these two string ones, it hasn't figured out how to convert those integers implicitly into strings. So that one's not going to quite work. But if it can, it will try to make it work. So that completes my demonstration of overloaded functions. And just to summarize, you can write multiple functions with the same name, and C++ will figure out which one to call based on the difference in the parameter list. Thank you very much.